Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is the latest Service Department News webinar, and today we're going to be talking about the future of business travel. My name's Eloise. I'm the editor of hospitality for Service Department News, and in fact, this is my first webinar that I'm hosting on behalf of Service Department News. I've been overseeing the website since July this year, and what we do is we cover the global service department, apart hotel and corporate housing markets. Whilst I have your attention, I just want to flag an event that we're hosting in London on October the 25th. This is the latest Urban Living Insights event with a spotlight this time on hotels and hospitality. We'd love to see you there in person. And if you're interested in joining and attending, the link to buy tickets have been popped into the chat there. To provide a quick overview of how today's webinar is going to run, we'll spend around 45 minutes chatting to our panelists today, followed by some time at the end to take any question from our audience. So if you do have any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function, and I'll keep my beady eyes as and when these come through. And as a gentle reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and the replay will be automatically sent to every registrant at the end of the session. Let's meet our panelists for today. I've just heard from Torger. He's had, there's been an accident on the highway, so he is on his way. So hasn't quite joined the webinar yet. So we will hear from Torger in just a moment. But let me first hand over to Martin to introduce himself.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're coming from or wherever you're watching from. I'm Martin Klima. I'm the Chief Customer Officer and Board Director at SilverDoor Apartments. So for those of you that don't know, SilverDoor are the largest booker of service departments or corporate housing or extended stay in the world. We have offices all around the world. So we have two offices here in the UK, an office in the US, one in Singapore, one in Spain, and also one in India as well. I've been at the company just short of 12 years. As my title suggests, I'm responsible for our customers. I have a team of around 90 people that I look after globally, and we're very lucky to be able to look after some amazing clients. They have diverse, far-reaching, very demanding travel programs that keeps us on our toes. And we operate purely as an agent, which means we don't manage or own any properties. I think that's important for me to get across today. So we rely on our supply chain. We have around 2,000 property partners. Adina is one of those property partners in our network, and we rely on those property partners to support our clients with their accommodation requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. And on that note, Julian and Adina, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody as well from my end. Yeah, I'm probably, or I'm with Adina Apartment Hotels since May this year. So joining in as a regional director of sales for Europe. For all of you who are not that familiar with Adina Apartment Hotels, we are upper upscale hotels and apartments, and we have in Europe 19 properties with 2 different brands, over 2,000 apartments that we service. We are in 5 countries, mainly Germany, Scandinavia and Denmark, and Austria and Switzerland, and in Hungary. And our mother company actually is TFE Hotels, which is based in Australia, and they have over 80 hotels in different brands in Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and also here the main brand, of course, is Adina Apartment Hotels, and we hopefully see new brands coming up in the future as well in Europe.
Thank you, Julian. And Torger, thank you for joining us. I hope you haven't had too much of a stressful journey to get here, but please come and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, and apologies for being late. But my name is Torger Philosophos. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Landing. So I head up our consumer and our corporate sales team, so focusing both on end users that are traveling for flexible furnished housing, and then organizations and businesses for relocation and work assignment. Landing has been around since 2019, so we're about 4 years old. What's interesting about us, though, is we are the largest provider of flexible furnished housing in the U.S. So we actually, as opposed to Martin and the team over at SilverDoor, we hold approximately 6,500 leases across the country, and then have an additional approximately 14,000 units across our partner network as well. So we're predominantly focused entirely on the United States, but have a healthy mix of both B2C and B2B customers on the Landing side.
Thank you, Torger. And I'll flag here that all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers today have been popped into the chat, and I encourage you all to connect. Now, before we get sort of stuck into the main conversation today, we are running a poll, and this is my call out to our audience members today to please vote in this poll. I believe the speakers as well may also have the opportunity to vote, so I would encourage you to do so. One question, pretty simple and straightforward. Will you/your company travel more or less for business in 2024? And the second question, will service departments face increasing competition from other sectors for business travel in 2024? Whilst you are casting your votes, I'm going to rattle through some context slides to help set the scene for today's conversation. And when we get to the end of the conversation, we're going to have some discussion around the results of those polls. So whilst you are casting your votes here, here's some screen grabs that we've published on Service Department News recently that are all geared around business travel. And Hilton has recently released the findings of its 2024 Travel Trends Report last week, which found that Gen Z and millennials were likely to be the most active demographics traveling for business next year. And more than 1/3 of business travelers within these groups also said that they plan to extend a business trip in 2024. And you compare these figures with the report from the Highland Group and Calibri Labs, which was also published last week, which shows that extended stay room revenues were 20% higher in traditional hotels than in extended stay hotels. And this tells me that with the extended stay sector continuing to grow, there's actually greater opportunity for service departments and corporate housing to capture greater demand. And what I found surprising, going back to the Hilton report, and what highlights the influence of technology within the space, 76% of travelers said that they appreciate travel apps. I've heard it discussed before that business travelers are looking to book and manage their trip personally, and we can see on the next slide that there is corporate appetite for tools and technology systems such as live availability and instant book inventory. And technology will crop up in today's conversation, as will ESG. And it appears that sustainability is climbing up the priority ladder for travel managers, and we're going to learn how this is affecting travel choices. So with that in mind, let's talk about business travel, the future of business travel. And Torger, I would very much like to kick off with a question to you. Are you seeing any shifts in the length of stay in the US?
Yes, thank you. So across the board, we're seeing shorter member stays. We've also noticed specifically with business travel, companies are being a little bit more restrictive as to who's traveling and for how long. Some of it boils down to budgets. Our customers, our corporate customers, are a little less price sensitive than the consumers these days. But overall, budgets just aren't as flexible as they once were during the pandemic, when travel was a little bit more minimal.
Why? It's so surprising to hear that the length of stay is shorter, because you hear it in conversations. I've been reading about it that corporates are traveling less frequently, but actually for longer periods. So why do you think that you are seeing that change in the length of stay?
I think just companies are being more restrictive with their budgeting, and then in terms of who is traveling for how long, they're just holding on to that cash flow in the market today. I think only it's not as it was in early 2020, when only required travel was going on, but we are seeing shorter length of stays really across the board, both on member and our corporate partners.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any insights regarding who is traveling? I would imagine sort of small, medium businesses are probably the most agile and more likely to travel.
Yeah.
Do you have any industries or sort of demographic insights there?
Absolutely. So, I mean, our top industries in terms of the corporate travelers, construction firms, manufacturing companies, that business is still very much in swing today. We work also with production crews and film studios. So, teams based out of Atlanta and Los Angeles, Nashville. Insurance housing has also been big as of late with the disasters kind of going on, the hurricanes, the flooding. So that's predominantly what we're seeing, still an uptick in travel in those kind of industries and demographics. But, more of your consultants or your business travelers, your bankers, that we're not seeing as much activity as we once were there.
Mm-hmm. Julian, can I bring you in here?
Yeah.
Torger's obviously covered the sort of US market, but can you please provide a snapshot of the EMEA perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, so I can underline a bit what my colleague was saying, that in the business travel sector we see, let's say, a stagnating length of stay. So it's not really expanding. From a leisure perspective, we see the business has fully recovered already, and it's partly overachieving versus pre-corona conditions. So we see that really some regions are fully back. In terms of corporate, we see that small meetings are picking up. So, and this affects also the length of stay positively. We see that the old traditional business travel has not fully recovered yet. And the European region, that is pretty much also driven by larger events, by conventions and by fairs. We see that this has really changed over the years. Periods of length of stay have decreased, and people are more cautious and selective when it comes to travel to these big events where they go.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the bounce back of business travel will ever return to its sort of maximum capacity as we've seen in the past? And I'll be interested to hear everyone's thoughts on this. Julian, as we're with you, let's stay with you for this one.
Yeah, pretty difficult to predict actually, if we could see it, but for parts and partially for some destinations we see a full recovery. There are other destinations, and I just pick Frankfurt as an example here. In Germany, it was a highly appreciated fair market, much of business travel, and these are the markets that have suffered the most during the corona and not fully recovered yet. Other markets where there's a better mix of leisure and business, we see that they are fully back on track. So and that's probably also the kind of expectation that we have, that business and leisure will get more mixed up in the future, and these destinations will win that are offering everything, and also the kind of housing that offers everything.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw a quote quite recently from Sebastian Bazan at Accor, and he mentioned that it's becoming increasingly difficult to segment the business and leisure traveller. In fact, we should maybe no longer be targeting individual travellers, that we are all now just travellers. And on that note, we're talking about the remote workforce, or the growing remote workforce. Martin, what impact do you think these remote workers or hybrid workers, you might want to call them, will have on travel programs?
I mean, I think the impact of remote working has been in play for a while. It accelerated very quickly over the pandemic, and I think going back to your last question, which was, are we going to see a reduction in travel? I think yes is the answer. When you look specifically at large corporates, they realized during the pandemic that they could be agile, they can operate with people working remotely and still be fairly efficient. So when you speak to the corporates, they'll say, well, we are going to travel less. We're going to do less of the transient stays. We'll be a little bit more careful about what we can pivot over to a virtual meeting as opposed to bulking together a couple of meetings or a project and staying for longer. So yeah, there will be an influence on that. I think it's been, like I say, in play for a while, but it has definitely come to the fore in the last year or so. And ultimately, it's around cost savings for business. If they can operate a little bit more efficiently and save money, then they'll do so. And obviously, they'll meet their ESG targets as well. The good thing is, you know, if they are going to do longer trips like they say they will, that taps into the extended stay market, which is good for us. We saw that the extended stay market was very resilient during the pandemic. You know, it lent itself to that situation. So yeah, and I think the remote working scenario has maybe made us all take a different approach to how we treat our employees, and we look at our employees around the whole of the work-life balance. You know, the duty of care that we have there, and that also then ties into their preferences when they travel. What kind of products are they looking for? What kind of amenities do they want when they stay? You know, people now want in their travel program options for their travelers, which enables them to operate and live like they do when they work remotely. So we see more of that now. Those products coming to market with like co-working space, co-living space, hot desking, so you know people can come and go. You know, the whole bleisure concept of I'm going to have a business trip and you know, tag on a few days at the end or the start for some personal time. So yeah, I mean, and also if someone can work remotely and still efficiently from their fixed residence at home, then you know, we're seeing travel policies now which are giving like this kind of hybrid ultimate flexibility where go and work from Mexico for 30 days. But then you've got to take into account what are the implications with regards to tax or visas, immigration, risk around that. So there's more to think about, but I think the more forward-thinking companies are getting these policies in now because it enables their probably to attract the better talent and to be a bit more flexible. So yeah, it's a constantly changing landscape. And I guess in terms of programs and our response to it, we just have to be agile and look for the right products for that type of traveler.
Mm-hmm. Julian, I could see your hand was up there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let's say to add up to Martin's comment. That's all. I agree to everything. And what we see now, interestingly, is that more and more corporates are trying to mandate also their extended stay corporate travel programs, and that is, it's been in the pipeline in Europe for a while, but it's picking up now. We see it's getting more and more. Transient travel is pretty mandated and organized. Meetings are organized, but so the last chapter they can explore the corporate. It's now the extended stay thing, and we see that how everybody is trying to get a feeling what it really is. What should an extended stay product look like? What are they really the needs and so on. So this is a good and interesting journey to take together with the corporate clients.
We've had a question come in from the audience. I'll direct this one to Martin as it came through whilst we were hearing from Martin here. Do you think more companies are moving towards lump sum relocation instead of paying for everything directly?
Yes, we're seeing that. Again, it depends on when those companies have got to a size and scale of where they're having to relocate people, and when that's happened, maybe some of the older ones are still going with the traditional model and the new ones are coming in with that lump sum approach. And again, it depends on the demographic of their like workforce and what it is that they want. Do they want that flexibility, or do they want to have a bit more control over them? Is it a bit more, like I say, of a traditional approach where they want to dictate what they should, you know, how much they should be spending and where that money should be spent? Or is it, here, go for it? So it depends. Yeah, I would have to speak to our relocation clients and see what they're seeing, but you know, typically I'd say it is a mix. It depends on the end client.
Thanks, Martin. Torger, I want to bring you back in here, and we've touched on how the extended stay product is maybe evolving, and we've talked or we've touched lightly on the sort of accommodation types and amenities. But what are you seeing that's popular in your network, and then how is that shifting?
Sure. So we offer our members anything from a studio to a 3-bedroom apartment, or even a single family home. And for business travel in particular, our studios and 1-bedrooms apartments are the most popular. But it also depends on that type of business and whether folks are traveling with their families, or the industry. You know, I mentioned construction and manufacturing earlier. A lot of times those type of businesses like to book our larger units, our 2 or 3 bedrooms, our single family homes, because it reduces the per occupant cost per month. But I'll also say that, you know, workstations are a requirement for our members. So all of our units are designed to have a space to work from home, a desk setup. And then also, you know, with the pandemic, so many of our travelers have been accustomed to taking their pets with them, and almost an extension of their family. I know I love my dog just like a son, but, you know, 98% of our units are pet friendly as well. And especially with our traveling healthcare professionals, that is just like a number one. It's a prerequisite almost in having them select a unit is a pet friendly accommodation.
I've seen, I think, going back to that Hilton report, I think don't quote me on this number, but I think it might have been around 20% of travelers were saying that when they travel for business, they were planning on taking not necessarily a pet, but a friend or a family member with them, which certainly speaks to maybe extra rooms being added. I don't know, at least within the hotel space. There's something going on with interconnecting rooms. It seems to be it's something that people want to talk about or include now within the hotel industry. So I can certainly see that becoming more popular now moving forwards, even for your furry friends.
Yeah, and it even goes back to what Martin said too, is it's this kind of blend between business travel and leisure, which is, I think, why, you know, you're alluding to bringing family members. They're extending their trip either on the front end or the back end just to spend a little bit more time in that area that they're having to go for work. So to earlier point that, yeah, we're seeing that as well here.
Mm-hmm. Martin, how or are you finding, I should say, that awareness of ESG principles and criteria and commitments are impacting travel choices in terms of where they stay, maybe where they travel, how long they stay for? Could you share some insight within the sustainability space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, to answer the question, they are impacting travel choices, but I don't think it's as straight cut as that. I don't think it's impacting as directly as many people probably think it is. And what I mean by that, I mean, obviously, like, ESG is hugely important. It is to us as a company. But if you speak to most corporates, and if they're being honest, cost is still their priority. You know, sustainability, again, depends who you talk to, but will be high up the agenda. But when it comes down to options, cost will always be king. You know, there's a trickle down effect, isn't there, with the whole ESG approach, and that comes from whether that's legislation from government or from the EU, and then into big business, and then that kind of gets pushed down through the supply chain, and that influences us and what we do as well. And of course, we want to be able to comply and do everything we can. I think, is it influencing individual traveler choice? Yes and no. So I mean, I imagine we all do this. If we've got a number of options in front of us and it's hard to decide between one or two, if one of them's got better eco credentials, it's green, and it's the same price, we'll go for it because it's the right thing to do. It's the best thing. It's a generational thing as well. I think the younger generations are much more in tune with this, which is great, and they will be making much more conscious decisions around it. But ultimately, it comes down to the budget that allows them. So we all know as well that typically the green option is usually the more expensive option, you know, whether that's booking an apartment or buying a car, there's a premium on that. And so what is your company policy allowing you to do? Because if I've got 5 options and there's one that is the most sustainable, but it's 25% more expensive, it's unlikely that my budget policy is going to let me book that one. So that's what I mean about, yes, it is impacting traveler choice. There's more education and awareness out there, but the two things, the cost and the delivery of that, aren't aligned yet. So it's tricky. It's a tricky one to answer.
Can I ask how specific requirements are when it comes to ESG? What are you seeing in that sector at the moment?
A mix. I'd say not overly specific, in the fact that there's not a consistent standard to say sustainability. There are different accreditations and bodies and certifications that can be applied to different buildings, for example, but there isn't this one consistent, and so therefore it's tricky to have a specific approach that is kind of mandated by the client. At SilverDoor, we have signed up for CDP and EcoVadis, and that will give us an accreditation and a score on the back of that, and that's how we're performing. But then at an individual property level, it's quite difficult. I think it's more about aligning ethics and principles more on the SG part of ESG, and the social and the governance side is, what is it we're doing in terms of looking after our people, how we treat people, how we engage with the community. And I think that's what big corporates want to see, that we're on the same page. Going back to the sustainability piece, it's more about the data and the reporting at this point. So it's not exactly saying, right, we're only going to book properties that are using 100% renewables, have solar panels, whatever it may be. It's about just at this point being able to report on what it is they're booking. So we've just introduced a carbon calculator at SilverDoor, and that will give us an average carbon output of a property. And so therefore that's very easily reportable for our corporate clients. So they can see, okay, this is how much carbon we're consuming with our travel program. How does that compare? How can we make changes? How can we change other things in our travel program? So at the moment, it's more about the data and the reporting. So sorry to kind of go off track, but to answer the question, some are more specific than others, but I think mainly they're more looking for a commitment to ESG rather than specifics about what you can deliver at this time. Yeah.
Can I pick you up on the S part of the ESG, which I know is probably one of the most difficult in terms of trying to define and measure and report on? But a question from the audience here: how can companies ensure they fulfill their duty of care for traveling employees, or to satisfy employee needs, such as taking into account their social, personal, cultural references, who embark on corporate travel programs?
Is that for me?
I'm going to send that one over to you.
Thanks, Martin.
It's a difficult one, and again, from my position, I can only talk as an agent, and it depends on the policy or the company at which that person's traveling under. So for some, they might have very stringent requirements around how that person should be handled, spoken to, things that should be available to them in terms of support when they arrive into a country or to a property. So it differs greatly. It's a difficult. I think we can really go down a rabbit hole and find ourselves in a mess with this whole piece. I think, have we been doing things massively wrong in this area before? I don't think so. For me, it's about treating people with respect, seeing where someone might need some extra support and delivering that and caring for them, providing them with the information that they need to feel comfortable in a new location, and just generally just using common sense. I think if we go too far the other way, we end up tripping ourselves up. And I don't think that's a particularly useful thing. I don't know if I've answered that question, but I hope that helps.
Yeah.
It does.
If I might jump in, sorry, if I might jump in, because I just wanted to compliment to Martin's comment. The hospitality industry, as an industry, was always aiming to fulfill or to meet the client requirements in terms of their specific and personal needs. So I think that's not for the individual traveler. It's not the, let's say, the most immediate need that we see. It's more from our end as a hotel operator. It's more that we come to a conclusion that we have a common standard in terms of ESG, that we can work on the data part that Martin mentioned, and then we have a common understanding of what we are talking about, and not adding up new requirements and questions with every RFP round that we're going through.
Sticking with you, Julian, for my next question. We've talked about sort of changing traveller needs in terms of the accommodations they stay in, how long they're staying for, what products they're looking for, and how ESG is affecting their choices. What I'm curious to hear is, how is changing traveller needs actually shaping brand strategy in terms of where Adina is scaling, expanding to, etc. So over to you to pick this one up.
Yeah, so from a property or from a building perspective, we see that in our evolution with Adina, that we already honored the need for more studios. That's what Torgen mentioned. Yeah, that we have more accommodation for the people who are looking for a short to mid stay in our properties. So this is of course something that everybody wants to achieve. Also the workspaces, to have more common space for everybody, shared spaces, that is something we're looking into. And now we're looking also into a completely new product where we really take everything into account from Generation Z requirements. And that's pretty much everything that was there already. So digitalization is a big part. How can we become more digitalized without losing our hospitality roots? Yeah, so still as a hotel or a hospitality operator, we don't want an empty building where you just check in. So there needs to be an aspect of hospitality still in. The space will be redefined, so people are used to more dual use or multi-use space. So can a kitchen also be the breakfast place, and can it be converted into something else, into a workplace? And can we go back to the fact that we have places where people come together to cook and work? So these are things we're looking into, and hopefully it comes into a brand new product then at one stage. In terms of destination, it's still, of course, it's driven also by the real estate operators, where we see a potential. But let's say to go into more, go away from the city center destinations where we are at the moment with our upper upscale hotels, to go more into suburban areas. Yeah, we're definitely looking into a product that is more aiming into younger travelers who are looking for another kind of hotel product from what we have now. Of course, sustainability is a big part, and that's also a question in the making of what is the definition of sustainability, of plausible sustainability that is real and not just a phrase that we are using to sell our product. And I think this is something that the next generation will be very conscious about, that we're not building theaters of sustainable housing. It needs to be real. It needs to be it needs to be flexible for them. Yeah, flexibility is definitely something where we believe is the key for future developments.
It'll be wrong of me not to ask, Julian, but is there a time scale on this new product?
Yeah, I mean, when you speak to development, there are also salespeople. So let's say the next 2 years is something we are aiming at. It's already in the development phase, but we're doing actually a test lab in one of our cities. So this is something very, very exciting, that we get customers on board who will sleep in these properties, where we can really do A/B testing of different products against each other, and then taking the customers into our development process, and not producing on the bench for 3 years and then coming out ta-ta, and there's no need. So this is something very exciting, and I'm sure you will hear more from it in the future.
Thanks, Julian. Torger, Julian just touched on something there about flexibility, and I know that at Landing that you've got the flex rental offers, and I'm just wondering if you could share some further insight for those in the audience who might not know or familiar with Landing and what you guys deliver. Could you shed some light on the flex side of the business?
Yeah, certainly. Happy to provide insights on flex. So this is a recent product that we recently rolled out, and it was actually born out of working with travel nurses and healthcare staffing providers. So Flex allows our customers, our members, to place an open-ended reservation and commit to a minimum length of stay. So they can book a 30-day Flex reservation, which is a 30-day minimum stay at a home, but no end date, and just provide us a 14-day notice when they're ready to leave. Now, we also have a 60-day and a 90-day Flex product, and then a 180-day. Obviously, the longer you commit, the lower that monthly fee or that monthly rental rate is going to be. But what this does is it gives that flexibility back to our members. Exactly as Julian was mentioning, flexibility is very top of mind for us. We believe that's extremely important to our customers, our members. And this just gives more freedom and flexibility back to them without having a hard commitment. Oftentimes contracts are getting extended, or construction projects are multiple months, running behind schedule. So this has really enabled that flexibility on our consumer and our business travelers.
Mm-hmm. And up until this point, thanks for that, Torger. And up until this point, we've touched on more the social, cultural changes that are impacting business travel. But Torger, staying with you here, what emerging geopolitical factors are currently impacting business travel?
Yeah, it's a great question. And from our perspective, a lot of this boils down to the emerging challenges on the supply side. So in the US, major cities like New York and Philadelphia, they've cracked down on short-term rentals. It's impacted availability on traditional short-term options like Airbnb and Vrbo, especially created some challenges for hosts as well. I think just 2 weeks ago or so, 4,000 listings were taken down in New York City on Airbnb. And it's something that's really top of mind for us. We see this as an opportunity. And similar to Julian, we have some exciting stuff in the background coming very soon to help navigate these restrictions, not only for our travelers, but our property partners as well.
Is there anything at this stage that you can reveal, or am I again just sort of testing
I can't reveal anything now, but you'll see some announcements in the next coming weeks very soon. Yeah.
Thanks, Torger. Martin, what are your thoughts on this, or on the geopolitical factors, situations, conditions that globally we're faced with?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point, and I think unfortunately it's hard to go a day without some kind of major geopolitical incident popping up on the news or happening. Obviously, the two biggest ones that spring to mind is the situation in Ukraine and now the recent situation in Israel. And look, if I look at it from a purely a business perspective, SilverDoor, well, all of us on this call are in the business of accommodating people, finding accommodation for them. Disruption does mean that people move, and therefore we're there to support them. And so last year, with the Ukraine situation, we moved a large number of people out of Kyiv and out of Moscow, and it was great to be able to help. Obviously, that's business for us. That's a very short-term view, and obviously what we're seeing in those places is horrific. And I'm not, downplaying any of that for a second, because long-term, none of this is good, obviously, for anyone at all. In the fact that it's instability, we'll see oil prices go up, we'll see, travel restrictions, visa delays, and basically just a general lack of confidence in the market, which has just a really bad knock-on effect for the entire economy. If there's any kind of sniff of war close to Europe, we see a real decline in people from the US wanting to travel to Europe, for example. So that's a big risk for us. And the confidence thing is key. You know, if the confidence is knocked, corporates are going to put projects on hold. They're not going to take the risk. You know, they're very risk averse. They're more risk averse probably following the pandemic. And so it does have that really big knock-on effect. I guess with regards to strategies and how to cope, again, I go back to the pandemic. It was, you know, we remember at that time, it's all about information. Everything was changing on an hourly basis. Someone would go, I want to travel to here. What are the restrictions? What paperwork do I need? Can I get in? Do I need a test? You know, what test do I need, etc., etc. Do I need to wear a mask? And all of those things. And it's access to information, it's how quickly we can get that information to people and how accurate it is. You know, we also work with such a wide range of clients, very different portfolio of clients from one end to the other end of the scale. So we never kind of shut off a location if there's some kind of geopolitical situation. So, you know, for example, we work with the press and the media. So they're going to be sending journalists to places where no one else wants to go. But we're not going to say no. We're going to say, we can support you, but what's your policy? You know, it's up to you. It's your travel policy. What's your security team saying? So, yeah, I mean, geopolitical situation has a huge impact on us. Short term, there's disruption, but long term, it's bad. You know, it's bad for the economy. Things are inefficient, and again, it's that whole confidence piece. The confidence goes, and then we lose business. So, yeah.
How do you see this impacting distribution strategies? There's lots of relocations and lots of placing people sort of in specific areas and markets. How do you see this affecting, you know, how we buy, sell accommodation?
Again, it depends on the industry or the business that is sending those people and what type of business they're in. They will, so, you know, some of the large companies that we work with, whether they're in kind of like the engineering or oil and gas industries, they work in these kind of volatile marketplaces. But like I said before, they have their own security team, so they'll go out and vet an area and make sure it's as secure as possible for their employees to go and work there. But yeah, undoubtedly, just general travel will take a knock from this kind of issue. And so in terms of distribution strategies, I guess I'm not so much on that side of things in my position, but I'd kind of go back to the remote working situation, and it's about being agile and flexible and being able to pivot. That's difficult if you're an operator that solely provides accommodation in one of these locations. How do you pivot? You can't. You're kind of stuck, and there's war at your door. There's not a lot you can do, and that's just the harsh reality of things. Whereas, well, it depends on your model and how you've sourced the accommodation. You know, are you leasing them, and what kind of flexibility do you have? But yeah, it's about being agile and being flexible.
Thanks, Martin. Julian, I want to bring you in here to talk about distribution strategies in Europe. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Germany is your largest market in Europe.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
How do you distribute inventory at Adina?
So of course, as we are not only an apartment provider, but a hotel apartment provider, we rely on all distribution channels. Yeah, a large part is of course third-party channels as the traditional OTAs, the GDS, other partners where we have direct connections with. That's mainly, of course, in the let's say in the traditional hotel overnights. Yeah, so short-term accommodation mostly. When we speak about extended stay and long stay accommodation that comes in from customers, we still see them approaching us directly. So this is really, funnily enough, this is still the traditional way. It's not the fax, but it's an email, it's the phone call that we get. Different reasons. Yeah, partly it's more secure to book a long stay when you invest probably some money directly with the provider rather than over another tool. When it comes to corporate and B2B, extended stay, of course, we work heavily with partners like SilverDoor, They are our extended arm, and they are our arm into the world, as we don't have present in the US and other markets. So this is something where we gratefully rely on. We hope to expand our network in the future, and then of course get also more direct connections. I mentioned the corporate programs for extended stay that are being built up by the corporates now. We don't know how they will book it in the end. Yeah, so it's not everything can be booked via GDS. And as we are a hotel operator, we also need to keep in consideration the daily trends that we have in the market. Yeah, when a fair goes on, we have other demands, we have other rates in place than in normal periods. So this is a bit of a challenge, but we're working on it to make also our long-term rates bookable for our partners and for our external partners via interface and via direct connect, that we get more connection into the market. And that's definitely the trend that we have, that we show our availability live with the partners and directly to our customers.
Do you expect your strategy to change as the Adina brand specifically establishes greater presence? I think we learned earlier that the parent company is based out of Australia.
Out of Australia, yeah.
Yeah, and you're expanding into Europe. So do you see that shifting in the future?
What? Sorry, what do we see?
Your distribution strategy.
Yeah, carefully. Yeah, it depends. It depends always on systems and how we work with the systems. It's a lot about connectivity and being still in charge of our own inventory. But yes, the strategy is definitely to open up our inventory also for long-term bookings. To partners and directly via our website to our customers, that they can book and get the best rates available also for long-term periods. I think that's the future, and we need to follow this trend.
Thanks, Julian. Torger, can I ask how Landing is driving its corporate bookings?
Yeah, certainly. So really from the start, Landing has been laser focused on a seamless user experience. And it's one thing that I think is one of the biggest opportunities for improvement in the business travel industry. So, all of our units are displayed in real time with real-time pricing availability, instant book capabilities. So you don't have to submit a form and wait to hear back on if this unit's available or what the price is. You can go on and book 20 units right now, or 40 units tomorrow, so long as they're available. And along that line in technology, we really view ourselves as a technology company. So we have built an integrated mobile app that provides all the arrival instructions and access information. You can submit a ticket to the property right there. We have API integrations with all of our property partners, and it seamlessly drops a ticket for them to handle. 80% of our units are self-check-in with a remote lock that's integrated in our app as well. So we're really utilizing technology to drive an amazing experience to then drive booking. So, and what I mean by that is, demand-wise, it's been explosive over the past few years. A lot of it's been word of mouth, some social media attention around our new products and offering, but we've built an incredibly strong reputation in the industry. If you take a look at Trustpilot, which is really one of the premier review sites in the United States, we have the highest Trustpilot score of a flexible furnished provider in the US, almost 3 times Airbnb's. And we're continuously striving for excellence. We have on the ground field teams in all of our top markets. Their job is to ensure an amazing experience from move in to move out. And we listen to our members. We listen to where we can, level up the experience even more. We routinely send out net promoter scores and surveys to understand where we're falling short and where we can really lean into and provide a better experience. And then, what I also wanted to mention is back to Martin's comment on cost really is king still, right? Landing holds, as I mentioned, approximately 6,500 leases, and we don't lease match. So we take out leases anywhere from 12 to 18 months, and it's our objective to hold those units for multiple years and really develop a partnership with our property partners. Now, by holding that many leases for that long, we're able to have a lower monthly cost for landing, which then we can pass those savings back onto our partners and then thus their guests. So that's kind of how we're going about it and approaching it, really from an experience point of view and a technology standpoint, and really doing the best possible job we can to service our members and provide that amazing experience.
Thanks, Torger. I'm aware that we haven't really talked much about technology during this conversation today. So I'm going to actually take this opportunity to mention again to our audience members, all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers here are in the chat. So please do connect. And if you have any questions after this webinar has finished, do reach out. We're almost at 3 o'clock UK time. So what I would like to do is share the poll results and just spend a few moments asking our panelists here what they think of the results. Perhaps one, I'm surprised by the results slightly, but perhaps in other ways maybe not so much. So we asked, will you travel more or less for business in 2024? 86% answered that they will travel more for business next year. When asked if service departments will face increasing competition from other sectors for business travel, 88% said yes. So, Torger, I'm going to stay with you for the moment here. Do you have anything to add? Are you surprised? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I'm a little surprised by the 86% that they'll travel more for business. You know, I think it goes back to the industry and to where you're traveling to, as Martin alluded to. But I think the increased competition, I think that's certainly the case. You know, different brands are figuring out how they can capture more longer term stays. You know, you've read articles about Airbnb and competitors in the US really focusing on those 30-day plus reservations. That's something Landing has always strived for, is longer term stays. But I think the healthy competition is great for the member and great for the consumer, because at the end of the day, they're going to then be provided with a better experience, more tools to have a better stay, and more support while they're out there traveling.
Mm-hmm. Martin, Julia, do you have anything that you would like to add here?
Yeah, I mean, that bottom question, you know, will the service departments face increasing competition? I almost feel like the question will be redundant not too far in the future, because what is a service department anyway? I think that is blurring so much that it's hard. It's almost hard to compare. So you say, well, what is competing? Is it competing with itself? You know, it becomes that kind of mess where, not a mess, but, you know, I think just the distinction between what it is. We've seen, you know, in my time working at SilverDoor, the traditional service department that I was used to booking when I first joined now is a very different kind of animal, and there's a lot more apart hotels and this whole blend. And again, it comes down to the, you know, what the travelers want and the different generational needs. So I agree with the answer, but I just think the question itself will actually kind of disappear in time, because the concept of a service department will just blur into something else.
Mm-hmm. And Julian, anything to add here?
Yeah, just slightly. I mean, we see many new products coming up at the moment. It has to be proven how many of these products will stay, but certainly it gives a better or exposure of the service departments in the whole hospitality market. Yeah, so extended stay is becoming a more relevant thing, and we are talking more and more about it. And when people get used to this concept, of course, everybody benefits. I'm happy that that for the 2024 trends, that more people will travel. You never know; it can be affected by anything. But I think, yes, the general trend is we will travel is coming back even more, and hopefully not affected by any major disruptions.
Mm-hmm. And on that positive note, Julian, thank you. Martin, thank you. Torger, thank you so much for your insights. I've just got some closing slides to run through before we close off this webinar today. I just want to flag that the next webinar is going to be taking place on the 2nd of November. My colleague George Sell will be hosting a session on the EMEA Spotlight, which is forming part of our Urban Living Middle East series. So that webinar is one of 4 within the series. So we'd love to see you all there tuning into either the Service Department news session or any of the other 4 episodes that we'll be hosting. And we have a little bit today talked about the increasing blurring between service departments and short-term rentals. In fact, we are hosting, excuse me, the Short-Term Rental Summit next week in London, taking place on the 18th of October at the Skyline. We would like to offer our SAN exclusive viewers 50% off tickets, and you can use the code SAN Summit 50 to redeem those tickets if you'd like to follow the link into the chat. If this is an in-person full-day event with a cracking lineup, and would absolutely love to see you there in person. If you're interested in working with us, either across our digital webinar series, our digital outputs, or even our in-person events, please do get in touch with my colleagues, Rav or Piers. Their details are up now on your screens. And all that's left for me to do today is to say thank you once again to our panelists. Thank you for submitting your questions, and I very much look forward to seeing you again for the next Service Department News webinar that I'll be hosting. Thank you very much and take care.
Thank you.